In the very hot summer of 1518, a woman walked into a street in a city called Strasbourg and started to dance. She wasn't dancing a pretty dance. It was a non-stop, wild dance that she couldn't control. There was no music playing and no one was watching. All you could hear was the strange sound of her shoes hitting the old stone street over and over. She didn't stop when the sun went down. She didn't even stop when her husband, who was very confused, begged her to stop. She danced all through the long, hard night. When the sun came up, her feet were hurt and bleeding, and she was covered in sweat. Her neighbors came out to see the strange sight. At first, they thought she was just playing a weird trick, but then something strange happened. One of the neighbors started to dance too. Then another person started. In just 1 week, 400 people were dancing. They were all twisting, spinning, and jumping together. They danced until their shoes fell apart. They danced until their bodies hurt all over, and sadly some people danced until their hearts stopped. The old city of Strasbourg didn't have a sickness from rats or bugs. It had a dancing sickness. It was a scary, strange sickness that made people move, and nobody knew how to stop it. This wasn't just a weird story from the past. It was a very scary time when people's own minds and bodies stopped listening to them. The old records say her name was Frau Trophäa. Besides her name, we don't know much else about her. We don't know how old she was, what her job was, or her last name. We just know that on July 14th, on a normal summer day, she walked out of her simple wooden house and started her strange, non-stop dance. People who saw her said her face was calm, like she wasn't thinking about anything. It was like she was listening to a song that only she could hear. After 2 days of non-stop moving, her body was in bad shape. Her lips were dry and cracked, and her skin was wet with sweat. Yet her legs kept on moving like something else was controlling them. On the 3rd day, something awful happened. Her hands were bleeding because she couldn't stop clapping them along with her feet. The smart doctors from that time had an idea. They said she had hot blood. What they told her to do was strange. They said she needed to move even more. They thought that if she could dance the sickness out of her body, she would get better. But they were wrong. Nobody could have guessed what would happen next. Instead of getting tired, her scary, long-lasting dance started to spread to other people like a sickness. The doctor's bad advice didn't help. It only made things much worse. In just 1 week after she started, 30 more people felt like they had to dance too. They danced in a painful way right next to her. By the end of the 2nd week, the number grew to over 100 people who were trapped by the dancing sickness. The small, twisty streets of the city were usually busy. Now they were filled with a scary, non-stop sound. It was the sound of feet hitting the stone streets, people gasping for air, and sometimes a sad cry. Shops in the market started to close, not because no one was shopping, but because the shopkeepers started dancing too. Priests tried to help by sprinkling special holy water. Mothers tried to pull their children inside to keep them safe, but it didn't work. The group of dancers kept getting bigger and couldn't be stopped. They made a long, moving line of people that stretched across the city. Old stories from that time tell a scary story. Many dancers just stared forward. Their eyes looked empty, like their minds had left their bodies. Their arms and legs moved around so wildly that some people's shoulders popped out of place. But the non-stop dancing kept going, day and night. There was no music playing. There was just the crazy sound of shoes on the street and a scary scream when someone finally fell down. As things got worse and the dancing took over the whole city, the city leaders had an emergency meeting. These leaders, who were smart business owners and church leaders, had no idea what to do. At first, they panicked. Some thought it was a punishment from God and wanted everyone in the city to stop eating. Others wanted to shut off the town's water to make everyone stay inside their homes. But the doctors had a very different and very bad idea. Their idea came from old beliefs about the body. They said that people should not stop dancing. They believed the sickness was caused by too much hot blood. They thought if people stopped dancing, the bad stuff would get trapped inside and make their brains rot. So what did they say to do? Let them dance. They were very sure about this strange idea. The city leaders were desperate, so they listened to the doctors. They hired musicians with pipes and drums to play music for the dancers. They even built a wooden stage in the town square. They also did something really surprising. They allowed gambling again for a short time. hoping people would come to watch the dancers. The leaders thought that with music and a stage, the dancers would get tired faster and the sickness would go away. But their plan went terribly wrong. Having a big public show didn't stop the sickness. It made more people come to watch. The dancing sickness, helped by the music and the crowds, spread even faster from street to street. So the big question people still ask today is, what really happened inside people's brains during that hot summer in 1518? How could a whole city start doing such a scary, out-of-control dance? Today, experts who study the past and science look at the old, broken records. They have three main ideas that might explain this mystery. Theory 1. Ergot poisoning. The first idea is about a tiny germ. It's a type of mold that grows on rye plants which are used to make bread. When it's rainy, like it was in 1518, this mold grows on the rye. Inside the mold are strong chemicals that act a lot like the drug LSD. If you ate bread made with this bad rye, you could have scary problems. You might see things that aren't there and your body could start shaking and moving like you're dancing. The summer of 1518 was wet, which was perfect for the mold to grow. The bread that poorer people in the city ate was often cheap, dark bread. At first, this sounds like the right answer, but this kind of poisoning usually causes other terrible things. It can make your hands and feet turn black and cause a lot of pain. It also makes people throw up and feel like they are burning. People who are poisoned this way usually scream in pain, but the old stories say the dancers had calm, empty looks on their faces. Almost no stories from that time talked about black toes or the bad smell of sickness. So, even though the mold can cause shaking and make you see things, it doesn't explain everything. So poison from bread is just a maybe. Theory 2. Mass psychogenic illness. Now let's look at the idea that most experts think is the best one. It's called mass psychogenic illness, or mass hysteria. To understand this, you need to know what life was like back then in Strasbourg. It was very hard. For years there wasn't enough food. People were starving and had to eat things like rats, wood dust, and even leather from shoes to stay alive. Sickness was everywhere and it was scary. Bad diseases hurt almost every family. On top of being sick and hungry, people were also very scared in their minds. Church leaders told them all the time that God was angry and was going to punish them. This made everyone feel very afraid and worried all the time. When you live with so much stress for so long and you don't feel like things will get better, the brain can do something strange to protect itself. When a person feels too much fear, their mind can turn that bad feeling into a physical action, like moving your body without wanting to. This can put you in a kind of trance. Your feet start moving on their own. You might not feel pain as much, and you might not feel like yourself anymore. This has happened at other times in history. In 1962, some schoolgirls started laughing and couldn't stop, and it spread to other towns. In these cases, there was no poison or germ. It was just one person's worry spreading to another person. Most experts today think this is what happened in Strasbourg. It was a sad case of mass hysteria. The people believed in magic and curses, and they really thought that evil spirits could take over their bodies. So the dance was a scary, out-of-control way for everyone to show how much pain and fear they were feeling inside. Theory 3. Religious ritual hijacked. Finally, let's look at an idea that mixes people's feelings with their beliefs. The idea is that the dancing sickness was a religious event that went wrong or was taken over by everyone's fear. A long time ago in Europe, people sometimes danced wildly because of their strong religious beliefs. People would travel to holy places and dance until they were in a trance. They hoped this would save them from punishment or cure their sicknesses. There was a saint named Saint Vitus. People believed he was in charge of dancers. They also believed he could punish bad people by making them shake or get sick. So when Frau Trophäa started dancing, people watching might have thought it was a scary sign from a saint, not a sickness. Because people were very superstitious, they might have thought it was a curse from God with a warning that said, "Dance with us, or you will be cursed too." When the city leaders made a mistake and paid for bands and built a stage, they added fuel to the fire. The town square was supposed to be a place to help people get better. Instead, it became a strange and scary show where it looked like people were trying to save themselves by dancing wildly together. The fear of being punished by God, plus seeing everyone else do it, could have been a strong reason for the sickness to spread. Just as suddenly as it began, the scary dancing sickness began to slow down. By the start of September, the fast dancing became slower. The energy was gone and people were just completely tired. Some dancers, whose bodies couldn't take any more, just fell down dead in the streets. Others fell down and passed out. When they woke up, their bodies were stiff and their minds were empty. They couldn't even remember their own names. The problem was too big to solve. So the city guards, as a last try, gathered the leftover dancers and put them inside the big main church. There they closed the giant wooden doors and locked the sick people inside for 3 days of praying together. Inside, there was no music. It was just quiet, with the sound of quiet prayers and the smell of incense. When the church doors opened again, the strange spell was broken. It ended just as strangely as it had started. Old records say that up to 15 people died each day when it was at its worst. But the records from that time aren't very good. Experts today think the real number of deaths was probably around 50 people in total. It shows how hard the dancing was on their bodies. No matter what, the old stone streets of the city were covered in blood and sweat. The people who lived through it were so scared that they stayed away from the town square for years. The scary question from the past is still here. Could a strange and scary thing like this ever happen to a city today? If you ask a brain doctor, someone who knows how the brain works, the answer is a very clear yes. If you ask a school principal, who may have seen things like tick-tock ticks spread through classrooms, the answer is an even stronger yes for sure. People are built to copy each other, maybe more than we think. We react to the worries of a group and we look for ways to let out stress that is too much to handle. If you take away safety, add a lot of fear, and add stress that never goes away, the brain will try to find a way to deal with it. Sometimes that way is physical, and sometimes it's very weird. So the dancing sickness of 1518 is not just an old fairy tale, it is a deep and scary warning. It shows us that ideas and feelings can spread from person to person like a sickness. It shows that what a group believes can turn into real and shocking body movements. And when things in the world get shaky, the next big problem might not be a cough or a fever, but a strange new dance that everyone starts doing. Frau Trofea's shoes are gone now, but the story of what she did is still an important part of history. Her story is a strong reminder that this kind of hysteria is not fake. It's a real sign of real pain and worry inside someone's mind, looking for a way to get out. In that summer of 1518, the stage was a busy town square. The music was the sound of fear, and the sad show went on for 2 long months. The next time you feel like you just have to do what everyone else is doing, remember Strasbourg. Remember the hundreds of people who danced and the many who died. And remember the scary truth that no one was really hearing any music. It was like they were all screaming for help, but no one could hear them. If this story surprised you and gave you goosebumps, think about what other secrets are hiding in the past. Click the subscribe button for more old mysteries and big moments that changed our world. Write your own idea about the dancing plague in the comments, and share this video with a friend who says they can't dance. Maybe history shows that anyone can start dancing.